and welcome to Autocar Professional. I am Prerna Lidhu and I have the pleasure of sitting down with Mr. Prashanth Doreswamy today. We are going to talk about the industry, how the trends are sort of keeping up with the pace of technology change and so much more. We're pleasure to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Prerna, taking time out, and really pleasure indeed to be talking to you.
Sure. So we saw the PM e-drive scheme yesterday, and we saw how there is a focus on EV adoption.
Yep.
How do you think that changes in connected technology, electrification, automation is going to impact the industry and players like you?
Sure. If you see, this trend started 4-5 years back. Correct. And we used to call something called CASE or ACES, automated, connected, electrified, shared mobility. As we evolve, there are two more things which is coming into what we call as convenient and also sustainable mobility. I think all these trends really driving the transformation within the automotive sector. And when you talk about EV, if I have to say, EV is 30% electrified technologies and 70% is other technologies which could be connected, anything to do with the assisted functions or automated functions, and also sustainability and convenient functions. Yeah. So what's happening? Last 5 years, you have seen the trend. India was lagging in terms of safety and also in terms of emissions.
Yeah.
I think government did a really fantastic job in bridging this gap with the European.
Faster than so many
absolutely. I think we have bridged that to an extent possible. And now it is more driven by consumer preferences. When I say consumer preferences, connectivity is not driven by regulations, it's driven by individuals' preferences. Then convenient is driven by consumer preferences. And to an extent, electrification, it's a combination of both consumer preference as well as thrusted upon us by regulations and the government to make mobility much more sustainable. So these are the trends which really are driving this transformation within the automotive. Talking about the electrification, I personally feel India has done a pretty decent job when it comes to two-wheelers, three-wheelers, and intracity buses because there is a business case. You may ask me, in passenger cars, still last year it was less than 2% of the total cars sold was electric cars.
In fact, there's a demand blip there.
Absolutely. So what's happening, when you talk about, still there is a little bit of a premium for electric vehicles because of the cost of battery and the battery cells. I think. I'm sure there's a lot of work which is currently underway which will reduce the batteries cost and the cell cost, which will bring in at par with ICE engines. Yeah, that's where all of us are working towards that. And also the new EV architectures also making it possible for you to bring in a lot of new technologies on the connected features and the body electronic feature. And cars are becoming what we call an extended IoT device.
Yeah.
You and me, we have experienced our comforts at home over a period of time. We have seen that comforts at office. When we sit inside the car, we would expect that comforts to be inside the car and also always connected with the outside world. That's where the connected features are really increasing. At the same time, there's a lot of software content which is pushing. Now we have started already talking about what we call as software-defined vehicle.
Yeah.
Because today, if you see the architecture of a car, which is a little bit more distributed, and we are moving from distributed to something called zonal architecture, and ultimately to software-defined function, where your ability to orchestrate the functions in the car becomes much more faster and easier.
So there will be one center which controls the whole, these zones that you're talking about.
Absolutely. So today, if you take a car, it has about 70 to 80, depending on the complexity of the car, so-called individual ECUs. Could be a transmission ECU, engine ECU, airbag control units, or a door control module.
All that will integrate.
Absolutely.
Much faster.
So now, but your ability to orchestrate that ECUs, because it's distributed, is zero.
That will what will matter.
Absolutely.
And be the unit.
So as a first step, we are moving towards something called zonal HPCs or the domain servers, Could be for cockpit, could be for body electronics, could be for chassis, could be for powertrain, could be for autonomous mobility. And ultimately, this will evolve with something called an integrated cross-domain HPC, high-performance computer. Maybe 6, 7, 8 years down the line, you may see one single computer running the entire vehicle.
Wow. So how is the Indian market evolving differently from the, I know it's catching up in terms of technology. In fact, the appetite for technology here is much more than some of the other foreign markets. But how fast are we catching up, and what are the areas where we are seeing a good growth curve happening?
So one is certainly in terms of connected features. Today already you see the cars are migrating from so-called the analog displays to a digital TFT displays. Yeah, that's one, which is becoming much more user-friendly, and it enhances the user experience through that human-machine interface. Second is in terms of always you to be connected. That's where a lot of drive which is happening in terms of the gateways, telematics control units, which will keep your car as an extended IoT device with always your cars being connected. That's on the
safety
body side. And the third is on the safety side. Already we have done a lot in terms of ABS, or now most of the cars are fitted with electronic stability controls. And airbags, we started with the 1, 2, now we are talking about 6 airbags with an NCAP rating, absolutely. So that's making it even more safer. Like this, there are a lot of safety-driven applications which are coming in. And the third one is convenient features like ADAS functions. Again, if you talk about autonomous functions, you have to divide that into 3: assisted, automated, and autonomous. Maybe automated and autonomous could be a little long dream, because it's not just the technology in the car, because it involves
overall
environment, infrastructure, driving discipline, road signs, all. But assisted functions are the extension of safety. When I talk about assisted functions like lane departure warning, adaptive cruise control, emergency brake assist, so these are extended safety features which are there. So that's where you see a lot of L2 functions which are coming into the car, and also coupled with some convenient functions like auto park assist or some of the assist functions.
Got it. Coming to continental India, what is your vision for, say, the next few years? What will, you've spoken of 12% year-on-year growth this year. So what will that entail? What are the key drivers for you?
Okay. So I talked about, the look at the portfolio. We have something called UX, user experience, that's to do with different types of displays. The second is SAM, safety and motion controls, which is to holistic safety. The third is what we call as architecture networking. That's the complete body electronics, high-performance computers, zone control units, and all this. And fourth is the autonomous mobility, which is more of assisted and to some extent automated functions. These are huge growth areas. Last 5-6 years, we have seen when we are bridging the safety gap, there were a lot of requirements for the safety functions. So that's done to an extent. And now it's more driven by consumer preferences in terms of connectivity, and are having these added functions. That's where we feel going forward it's going to really drive our growth. While the market is growing at this year, they expect it to be growing at about 6 to 7%. I think we will grow at least more than double the market growth. These are coming from content per car really increasing.
This, even when the market is sort of seeing because of a very huge growth base last year, this year the growth seems to be muted, but you've not recalibrated your plans.
No, absolutely, because the content per vehicle is increasing. So that's where more than the volumes, we see a growth coming in terms of content per vehicle.
Got it. How do you balance, because like we spoke about how the content, software content in a car is going to go up, that will drive the costs in a lot of in a lot of cases. And then obviously your OEM partners would look for also making it affordable for a price sensitive market. Absolutely. How do you get that sweet spot?
Absolutely. That's one of the industry biggest challenge today.
Correct.
Because the hardware and software is coupled. Our ability to take that across multiple platforms is very, very limited. Then what happens, you have to invest a lot in new development with every single car or a single platform. That's where the industry is also looking at how do I overcome this migrating to software-defined vehicle, where you are separating the software from an hardware. So because software consumers cannot see, so there's a lot of work which is going on in terms of making the middleware. And any changes which will also help you at the later stage, your ability to carry it forward across multiple platforms. So what are the 6 advantages of this? While there is an initial investment which is involved in migrating to new EE architecture with the higher software content, maybe a domain server or a cross-domain HPC. But these are 6, I would say, advantages. Number 1, certainly additional revenue models for business, for OEMs.
As in subscription.
Absolutely. Your ability to sell functions over a period of time and get a revenue out of it. At the same time, for the consumer, today if you see a car, it remains same for even for next 8 years. But with this, consumers also can upgrade new functions, and there is a refreshness which is happening in the car over a period of time. Second one is, since the platform is we are able to carry over a platform, your ability to compress the total development time is by almost 50% for the new platforms.
Why is that? How does that
Because you have separated the software and the hardware, and you can carry forward with that, because today it is not a coupled integrated part of it. Then the third is also the ability to test in cloud, what we call road to cloud in code to road in one day. So today what happens, the traditional engineering methods is you develop, you spend a lot of time in terms of testing. Process. Your ability to test that parallelly in the cloud and push that function on through the OTA application becomes faster. Then the other one is certainly data. When the vehicles are fitted with so many sensors, there's a huge amount of data which you are capturing. So how do we use this data? So these are some of the advantages of SDV. While it's an initial challenge to migrate to this new architecture with an initial info, but over a period of time, your ability to orchestrate it across platforms becomes much more easier.
Right. Is there a case for technologies that are core to the Indian market that you develop in India that you can take outside as well and sell to other markets?
Yeah. So again, for example, if I have to talk about India, for us as Continental, the challenge is not technology, because technology is somewhere other parts of the world it's available. But the challenge is, while you bring this technology, India is a value-driven market. How do you make it affordable? Affordable. That's why with the India use cases, and that's the challenge for in India. While yes, there are also possibilities, because our ability to develop some of the products which are very, very cost effective. There could be use cases where we could take this to the other countries as well, vice versa.
Okay. Can you do some crystal ball gazing in the sense that what are the other next legs of technologies that will sort of come here and from the global portfolio, and then you can you think it will be successful in the Indian market, which might not be prevalent today?
Okay. So again, talking by domains, I talked about EE architecture. Today you have body control modules in every car which controls the body functions. But it has its limitations. So we are moving away from PCMs to zone controllers. So your ability to orchestrate is higher. And from zone controllers to domain cockpit, domain HPCs. From there to cross-domain HPCs, and ultimately to one single server stack, maybe 8-10 years down the line. So this slowly is also percolating down into India as well. There are already a couple of customers who are working on these technologies. The second one is in terms of autonomous mobility. So you see now high-end cars are fitted with many assisted functions, and also L2, L2 plus convenient functions like park assist or something. So there we see it's going to be a huge uptake over next 2 to 3 years, at least in terms of assisted functions. Then the third one is certainly user experience. We want our displays to be much more colorful, much more bigger. We are already talking about pillar-to-pillar display. In India market, it's moved from single display to 2 displays.
Absolutely.
And it's a matter of time, I'm sure it'll move to 3 displays. One for driver, one for center stack, and the third one is for the co-driver.
Wow.
So this is another area where, which is going up. And the fourth is on the safety and motion. While we have done exceedingly well when it comes to braking or active or passive sensorics, I think there's still many products which you could bring in. For example, we have a product, something called holistic motion control, which is software as a product, which really manages the complete chassis functions, taking inputs and making your chassis much more comfortable. So that's another area. And also suspension, what is called chassis position sensors. Given the Indian road conditions, electronic suspensions could be an expensive affair because you see them only in the high-end cars. But in between, something low cost, what we could have is chassis position sensors, which determines the positions of the suspensions and accordingly gives the input to the dampers and dampens the body, makes your ride a little bit more comfortable, and you can take this inputs for even the light functions also. So these are some of the things which are happening in the safety and motion. So these are some of the technologies for next 4 to 5 years. I'm sure it'll keep us busy.
The market will watch out
Absolutely.
for that. And also the Indian government has a lot of focus on Atmanirbharta and making for India, maybe making for in India for the world as well at some point. Where do you see that going? What is the potential of more localized products for the Indian market?
I talked about how do we make these technologies affordable.
Correct.
Because if you try to import these technologies, there is a 15 to 20% plus custom duty, which really increases the price.
Correct.
That's where our strategy also in the market, for the market. We've always been focusing on localizing the R&D, localizing the product to an extent possible. Today, if you see across platforms, across products, we have localized to a maximum extent. Unfortunately, India market is not, there's no supplier base for active and passive components like semiconductors. That, unfortunately, as of now, we need to import. But other than that, most of the products we continue to focus on localizing here in India, and thereby reducing the affordability cost.
So about 80 to 90% localized.
Absolutely. Other than the active passive components, we're able to localize most of the parts here. For example, 2 years back, we formed a JV with a Japanese company called Nishimbo. This is for wall block localization. This is for the brakes, electronic stability controls. We use the wall block, which we were earlier importing it from China. But it's such a complicated product. So we bought in our partner, which they are our partners in China, Japan, other parts of the world. They bought here and we formed a JV and they make it for us. So like this, step by step, we continue to focus on increasing the localization content.
Got it. And this is only going to go up further.
Absolutely.
You globally work with a lot of luxury car makers. Here, while luxury is a very small segment of the market, it's still developing. There's still headroom for growth for them. India is mostly driven by now a lot of local players like Tata, Mahindra, Maruti Suzuki has obviously Indianized itself a lot more and more earlier than a lot of. So when you see the local ecosystem developing in India, how do you make sure, like you spoke about affordability being a key challenge, how do you get the technology that you are sort of working with the luxury players globally to India, to the mass market? Now SUV is a mass market in India.
Absolutely.
So how do you translate that? How difficult is that?
Exactly. That's where one of the biggest challenge, when you bring in these technologies, how much you can fine tune to the India market use cases and the India market requirements so that it's not overly designed. That's number one. Number two, instead of importing the parts, how much you can localize here, thereby cutting down on the cost so that your BOM cost goes down. And third is the assembly. And the first one I talked about is the R&D localization. Today, you have to rely on some of the other countries for this technology transfer, but it comes with a cost. For example, we have a tech center in Bangalore where we have about 5,500 to 6,000 engineers working on some of the latest technology. This also gives us the leverage for us to localize many of the R&D work here in India for the market.
Very interesting. And also, like, there's also government schemes like PLI for auto components. And do you think we need more regulatory support to make in India, localize more? How can that help for you guys?
I think it will be always very wrong on our part to keep looking at government to do something. I think government is really doing a very good job in terms of helping the industry, promoting the industry with many schemes like PLI for automotive, which has been a big success. I think at the same time, from our side also, there has to be a lot of efforts, which I talked about, localization, R&D localization, and also in terms of developing the talent, how you could invest in young talent by having some sort of an working relationship with the universities, where you could influence your course curriculum so that when they come out, they are updated with the latest technology, and when you absorb them, it becomes much more efficient. From day one, they can start contributing to this thing. So these are some of the things I think as an industry, certainly we also should be looking at it.
Sure. And in the industry, especially three-wheelers and electric two-wheeler space, we've seen a lot of startups making a mark. Is that a huge opportunity for you going forward as a tier one supplier, or you see it because legacy players are also sort of playing a catch-up game, not for the four-wheeler space, but when we talk about the electric two-wheeler space and other categories. Absolutely. So how do you see the startup ecosystem as a huge opportunity in the...
Okay. So for us, certainly we see as an opportunity, but still there are many established players. Why do you see there are so many startups who are coming to space? But we have to wait and see how many of them really will be able to sustain over a period of time. That's also very important. Today is a little bit fragmented. There are multiple companies who are into making new two-wheelers. Electric two-wheeler. There are multiple companies, startups who are coming to challenging the established players like Bajaj or TVS. Yeah. So this thing, I think we have to wait and see, because this is not a 1 or 2 or 3 years affair. You need to look at the sustainability, long-term affair. So I think only time will tell how many of them really will be able to really turn it around and sustain. Yeah. Because they also cannot continue to keep burning cash.
Absolutely. Some of them are going for IPOs as well. So even the investor, the retail investor's money is sort of betting on it. Lastly, if you could quantify your growth plans for me going forward, what is your vision for the Indian market? How do you see it growing in, say, the next 5 to 10 years with electrification, connected vehicles, autonomous vehicles becoming a reality? So how would you quantify your growth?
One, from the volume perspective, last year we were about 5.45 million light vehicles, which is passenger cars plus the smaller pickups. That we see to reaching about 7.5 million vehicles by 2030. Okay. So 5.5 to 7.5, there's an addition of 3 million over the next 5 to 6 years. That's the growth, what we are seeing in terms of the volumes. Number two, in terms of content per car. So there's a lot of increase in the content per car. To an extent, we would see anywhere in terms of the new features, there could be an addition of about $2,000 into the average car. Absolutely, that's the content per car. Then the third is, how do you, as I said, bring in this technology, make it available, democratize these technologies, and available at an affordable mass segment. For example, when you talk about safety, why that safety should be limited to only a certain range of vehicles? Can we really democratize it and ensure that every single vehicle is protected from the base safety? But unfortunately, India's fatality rate is still high, so that we have something called Vision Zero, that is zero fatalities, zero injuries, zero accidents. So our purpose is to design these products to fulfill this Vision Zero, I would say.
You also diversified your portfolio quite well to make sure that the headwinds in the industry don't affect you. If you could talk a little more about that.
Absolutely. So if you look at Continental, it has 3 sectors. We have tires, we have Quantitech, we have automotive, which is more advanced technologies. I think these 3 sectors operate in different industrial space. And this also helps the cyclicity in terms of absorbing this. For example, automotive business, if you see, first quarter of the calendar year is always high, Jan, Feb, March. Then April, May, June, it little comes down. Then festive season kicks off.
Yeah, it's
Then
going
you see up to November increasing. Then December may go down. So during the cyclicities, we have other businesses which will really
Exactly.
help us to fill in this cyclic challenges.
And it's a global move translated to India as
Absolutely.
well. Great.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so
a
much.
pleasure talking to you. Very
Likewise.
exciting time to be in the industry.
Absolutely.
And thank you so much.
Thank
We
you so
will
much.
Keep
Thank you. Nice
talking to
talking.
you for next
Sure.
technologies, what's up in the industry. And thank you so much.
Sure. Thank you.